Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the quantum readings flickering across her laboratory's holographic display aboard the UES Horizon. The research vessel had been mapping the edges of known space when they detected something that shouldn't exist, a transmission using protocols that predated humanity's first steps into the stars. Dr. Chen, you need to see this. Her assistant, James Kumar, gestured to a second display, showing a spectral analysis of the signal. The quantum signature matches descriptions of precursor technology. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she examined the data. The precursors were the stuff of scientific legend, an ancient species that had apparently achieved technological mastery beyond anything known today, only to vanish without explanation 50,000 years ago. Their ruins dotted the galaxy, but no functioning technology had ever been found. Until now. Have you verified the signal's origin? She asked, already knowing the answer. James nodded, bringing up a three-dimensional star map. The source was deep within the Perseus Void, a region of space where the laws of physics seemed to break down, making it impossible for conventional ships to navigate. I've already sent the data to command, James said quietly. They're concerned about the implications. Sarah understood why. Humanity was still relatively new to the galactic community. Most advanced species viewed them as primitive upstarts, barely worthy of notice. A precursor discovery of this magnitude would change everything. Assuming they could reach it. The lab's communication panel chimed. Dr. Chen. The ship's AI announced. The Galactic Council representatives request your presence in the conference room. Sarah straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Tell them I'm on my way. The conference room was already crowded when she arrived. Captain Maria Torres stood at the head of the table, flanked by holographic projections of various alien representatives. The Arxur delegate's crystalline form sparkled as it spoke through its translator. The Council appreciates humanity's discovery, but we must insist that no rescue attempt be made. The Perseus Void is strictly forbidden territory. The risk of catastrophic space-time disruption is too high. With respect, Sarah interrupted. The signal we detected isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's a distress call. Someone is still alive out there. Impossible, the veteran representative scoffed, their feathered crest rising in agitation. No organic being could survive 50,000 years. The quantum signature suggests some form of temporal stasis, Sarah countered. We can't simply ignore. The Council has made its decision. The Arxur delegate cut in. The Void will remain quarantined. This matter is closed. The holograms winked out, leaving Sarah alone with Captain Torres. The captain studied her for a long moment before speaking. You're certain about the temporal stasis theory? Sarah nodded. The quantum harmonics are consistent with theoretical models of time dilation fields. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to preserve themselves while waiting for rescue. Torres smiled grimly. Then it's fortunate that humanity has never been good at accepting impossible situations. She activated the ship's internal comm. All hands, this is the captain. Set course for Earth. We're going to need some specialized help. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks at maximum quantum drive. Sarah spent the time refining her analysis of the signal, trying to extract any additional data that might help with a rescue attempt. The more she studied it, the more convinced she became that this was no automated beacon. The signal contained layers of complexity that suggested active modification. Someone was still conscious in there, reaching out across the millennia. Earth had changed dramatically in the century since first contact. The gleaming towers of the Orbital Defense Command stretched into the clouds, while ships of various designs filled the skies. But it was the facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean that interested Sarah now. The Leviathan Project was humanity's answer to the challenges of extreme environment operations. While other species relied on automated drones and remote systems, humanity had taken a different approach. They built ships that could go where no living crew should survive, then trained people crazy enough to pilot them. Welcome to Leviathan Base, Commander Jack Reynolds greeted them as they stepped out of the submarine transport. "I understand you have an impossible rescue for us." Sarah began her presentation, laying out everything they'd learned about the signal and the Perseus Void. She watched the commander's expression carefully, looking for any sign of doubt. Instead, she saw something unexpected: excitement. "Let me get this straight," Reynolds said when she finished. "We have a confirmed survivor of the most advanced civilization ever discovered, trapped in a region of space that defies the laws of physics, and every other species has declared it impossible to reach them." "That's correct." Reynolds grinned. "Excellent. I've got 4 ships and crews who specialize in impossible rescues. When do we start?" The next 48 hours were a blur of preparation. Sarah found herself assigned as scientific advisor to the rescue fleet's flagship, the UES Defiant. The ship was unlike anything she'd ever seen, a hybrid of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology, specifically designed to operate in conditions that should destroy it. As they made final preparations for launch, a priority transmission came through from the Galactic Council. Sarah expected another demand to abort the mission. Instead, she found herself facing the ancient Arxer Prime himself. "Dr. Chen," the crystalline being said, its translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of its voice. "We have reviewed your analysis in detail. While the Council maintains its official position regarding the Void, I feel compelled to share something with you." The Arxer Prime's form shifted, creating patterns Sarah recognized as deep emotional significance. The precursors were not simply another civilization. They were the guardians of this galaxy, protecting it from threats we can barely comprehend. Their disappearance may not have been random. "What are you saying?" "Only this: if you succeed in this rescue, you may be taking on responsibilities far beyond your current understanding. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah with a cold feeling in her gut. She made her way to the Defiance Bridge, where Commander Reynolds was reviewing final launch preparations. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, noting her expression. Sarah looked out at the other rescue ships preparing for departure. The Challenger, the Endeavour, and the Discovery. Each represented humanity's refusal to accept limitations, their determination to help others regardless of the cost. "No," she said firmly. "Someone has waited 50,000 years for rescue. We're not going to let them down now." Reynolds nodded in approval. "Then let's go make the impossible possible." As the rescue fleet broke orbit and prepared for quantum jump, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to change the course of galactic history. Whether that change would be for better or worse remained to be seen. The edge of the Perseus Void loomed before them, a region of space where conventional sensors showed only chaos. From the Defiance Bridge, Sarah watched as streams of quantum particles danced in impossible patterns, creating an ever-shifting barrier between normal space and whatever lay beyond. "Readings are off the charts," Lieutenant Maya Patul reported from her science station. "The Void is generating temporal distortions that would tear apart any conventional ship that tries to enter." Commander Reynolds stood at the center of the bridge, studying the tactical display with practiced calm. "Show me the signal's path through the distortion field." A red line appeared on the main view screen, threading through the chaos like a lifeline. The distress beacon's quantum signature had remained remarkably stable, creating a potential route through the madness. "Arxer long-range sensors detected," Communications Officer David Chen announced. "They're monitoring us from the edge of the system." Reynolds smiled grimly. "Let them watch. Maya, begin active scanning. I want to know everything about those temporal distortions." The next 6 hours were spent analyzing the Void's behavior. Sarah worked closely with Maya, combining their theoretical knowledge with the Defiant's advanced sensors. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. "The Void isn't random," Sarah explained during the fleet-wide briefing. "It's a quantum defense system, probably created by the precursors themselves. The temporal distortions are designed to trap anything that enters while preserving it in a state of temporal stasis. A prison, Captain Lisa Wong of the Challenger asked. Or a sanctuary, Sarah countered. The signal we're tracking suggests whoever's inside knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to be found, eventually. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. How do we get through? The distortions operate on a predictable frequency, Maya explained, bringing up a complex mathematical model. If we can synchronize our quantum shields to match that frequency, we might be able to ride the temporal waves instead of fighting them. Might. Captain Marcus Johnson of the Endeavour raised an eyebrow. This is theoretical physics we're talking about, Sarah admitted. No one has ever attempted anything like this. Then we'll be the first, Reynolds decided. Begin shield modifications. I want all ships ready for void entry in 12 hours. As the crews worked to implement the necessary changes, Sarah found herself in the Defiance Observation Lounge, staring at the swirling chaos of the void. David Chen joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. The Arxer sent another message, he said, handing her one of the cups. They're betting we'll either turn back or be destroyed within the first 5 minutes. Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully. What do you think? David considered the question carefully. I think humanity has a habit of doing things other species consider impossible. We went to space in tin cans held together by math and determination. We survived first contact by making friends instead of running away. We built these ships when everyone said it couldn't be done. And now we're about to dive into a region of space that breaks the laws of physics. Just another day at the office, David grinned. The 12-hour preparation period passed quickly. Sarah split her time between fine-tuning the shield modifications and studying the latest sensor data. The void's behavior was changing subtly, almost as if it was reacting to their presence. All ships report ready, David announced as the bridge crew took their stations for the attempt. Reynolds performed one final systems check before opening a channel to the fleet. This is Commander Reynolds. We've trained for impossible situations, but what we're about to attempt goes beyond anything in the manual. If anyone wants to back out, now's the time. The responses came back immediately, each ship affirming their commitment to the mission. Sarah felt a surge of pride in humanity's determination to help others, regardless of the risks. Very well, Reynolds said. Tactical Formation Delta. Challenger and Endeavour, maintain position on our flanks. Discovery, watch R6. Remember, if anything goes wrong, the mission continues as long as at least one ship makes it through. The rescue fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their modified shields creating a subtle resonance with the void's quantum field. As they approached the boundary between normal space and chaos, Sarah held her breath. Entering void perimeter in 3, 2, 1. Reality seemed to twist around them as they crossed the threshold. The view screen filled with impossible colors as temporal distortions buffeted the ships. Warning alarms screamed as the quantum shield struggled to maintain synchronization. Shield harmonics holding at 70%, Maya reported, her fingers dancing across her console. Temporal displacement effects within acceptable parameters. Discovery reporting minor fluctuations in their aft shield grid, David relayed. They're compensating. Reynolds remained focused on the tactical display, making minute adjustments to their course. Stay with me, people. Follow the signal's path exactly. They pressed deeper into the void, each moment stretching into eternity as the laws of physics broke down around them. The ship's quantum drives hummed at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible, their modified shields barely holding back the chaos. Suddenly, Maya's console lit up with new readings. Commander, I'm detecting a massive energy signature ahead. It's like nothing I've ever seen. The view screen adjusted automatically, revealing a sight that made Sarah's heart skip a beat. Through the swirling quantum storms, a structure began to take shape, a massive installation that seemed to float in the eye of the temporal hurricane. My God, David whispered. It's a precursor station. Before anyone could respond, a new signal cut through their communications, crystal clear despite the surrounding chaos. The language was ancient, but Sarah recognized it from her studies of precursor artifacts. After 50,000 years, the voice said, someone finally understood our message. Welcome, children of Earth. We've been waiting for you. Reynolds looked at Sarah, his expression a mixture of determination and wonder. Well, Doctor, he said quietly, I believe this is where the real work begins. The precursor station hung before them like a jewel in a quantum storm, its crystalline structures defying conventional architectural logic. As the rescue fleet maintained their defensive formation, Sarah worked frantically to analyze the incoming data. The station's quantum signature matches the distress signal perfectly, she reported. But there's something else. The temporal field surrounding it is orders of magnitude more complex than anything we detected from the void. Can we dock safely? Reynolds asked, studying the station's impossible geometry. Maya's hands flew over her console. The station appears to be generating a stable pocket of normal spacetime around its docking ports, if we can match those coordinates exactly. Challenger requesting permission to attempt first contact. Captain Wong's voice came through the comm. Reynolds shook his head. Negative, Challenger. The Defiant has the strongest quantum shields. We'll take point on this one. He turned to his helm officer. Lieutenant Park, take us in. Nice and easy. The Defiant glided forward, its modified shields resonating with the station's quantum field. Sarah watched in fascination as the ship passed through layers of temporal distortion, each one more intense than the last. Warning systems blared as the quantum drive struggled to compensate. Multiple contacts. David suddenly announced. Something's emerging from the station. The view screen filled with swirling lights that coalesced into dozens of small crystalline objects. They moved with impossible grace, forming complex patterns around the rescue fleet. They're scanning us, Maya reported. These aren't weapons. They're probe drones. The technology it's beyond anything in our database. The drones completed their inspection and retreated to form a glowing pathway toward one of the station's docking ports. The same ancient voice from before echoed through their communications. Your vessels have been analyzed and found suitable for temporal integration. Please follow the guidance path. Time grows short. Reynolds opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, maintain formation but be ready for anything. We're going in. The journey to the docking port felt like navigating through a dream. Reality seemed to bend around them, as the drone's pathway protected them from the worst of the temporal distortions. When they finally locked onto the station's docking mechanism, the entire bridge crew let out a collective breath. Atmospheric analysis shows breathable conditions inside, Maya confirmed. But the temporal readings, according to these numbers, time itself is flowing differently in there. Reynolds stood, straightening his uniform. Dr. Chen, you're with me. Lieutenant Patel, you too. We'll need your expertise. Captain Wong, your ship has command of the fleet if anything goes wrong. The station's airlock cycled with a sound like crystalline chimes. As they stepped through, Sarah felt a momentary disorientation, as if her consciousness was being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Fascinating, Maya breathed, checking her handheld scanner. The temporal differential is maintaining perfect stability despite the massive energy requirements. This shouldn't be possible. They moved through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked, the crystalline walls pulsing with internal light. Sarah noticed that their footsteps made no sound, as if the very concept of acoustics worked differently here. Look at these markings, she said, studying symbols that flowed like liquid across the walls. They're similar to known precursor writing, but far more complex. It's like seeing the difference between cave paintings and quantum mechanics. Welcome, explorers, the voice echoed around them, somehow both distant and intimately close. A doorway materialized in what had been solid wall, leading to a vast chamber that defied Euclidean geometry. In the center of the chamber stood a figure that seemed to be made of pure light, its form constantly shifting between different geometric patterns. Surrounding it were dozens of stasis pods, each containing what appeared to be sleeping forms of various alien species. "I am the curator," the light being said, its voice now coming from a definite source. "Last guardian of the precursor legacy, keeper of the final archive, and protector of those who sought sanctuary here." Reynolds stepped forward. "I'm Commander Jack Reynolds of the United Earth ship Defiant. We received your distress signal." "Yes." The curator's form shifted to something approximating the humanoid shape. "We have watched your species' development with great interest. Of all the younger races, you alone chose to answer a call that others dismissed as impossible to reach. The people in these stasis pods," Sarah gestured to the sleeping forms, "are they representatives of civilizations that faced extinction?" The curator explained. "They came here seeking preservation, hoping that someday a species would evolve with both the technological capability and the moral courage to attempt their rescue." Maya's scanner beeped urgently. "Commander, the temporal field protecting this chamber is degrading. According to these readings, we have maybe hours before it collapses completely." The curator's form flickered. "The Void's defenses were designed to last 50,000 years, time enough for a worthy civilization to arise. That time is nearly expired. Soon, this pocket of preserved space-time will collapse, taking with it the last survivors of a dozen extinct species and the accumulated knowledge of the precursor civilization." Reynolds straightened. "How many can we evacuate?" "Your vessel's quantum shields can be modified to maintain temporal stasis for the preservation pods," the curator said. "But the process will require precise coordination and will place immense strain on your ship's systems. The risk of catastrophic failure would be significant." "That's not what I asked," Reynolds said firmly. "How many can we save?" The curator's form shifted again, and Sarah could have sworn she detected something like approval in its resonance. "You truly are remarkable creatures. The modification protocols are being transmitted to your ships now. But you should know, this rescue attempt will have consequences far beyond the immediate salvation of these beings." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "The precursors did not vanish, Dr. Chen. We evolved beyond the constraints of conventional existence. But before we did, we created this archive and its guardians to ensure that the younger races of the galaxy would never face extinction alone. Those you save today will carry with them knowledge that could fundamentally change the course of galactic civilization." Reynolds nodded. "Then we better get to work. Dr. Chen, contact the fleet. Have them prepare for emergency temporal stasis protocols. Lieutenant Patel, I need you to coordinate the quantum shield modifications. We're about to make history. Again." Time moved strangely aboard the Defiant as the rescue operation began. The ship's quantum shields strained under the weight of maintaining multiple temporal stasis fields, each one preserving a pod containing beings who had slept through 50 millennia of galactic history. "Challenger reports successful transfer of their assigned pods," David announced from his communication station. "Captain Wong says their shield harmonics are holding at 60%. Reynolds nodded, his attention focused on the overall operation. "Endeavor status. They're having some difficulty with the temporal synchronization," Maya reported, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic displays. "The quantum resonance is creating feedback loops in their shield grid. Transfer the remaining pods to Discovery," Reynolds ordered. "Tell Endeavor to maintain their position, but drop their temporal field before it overloads." Sarah watched the operation from her temporary station on the bridge, monitoring the vital signs of their ancient passengers. Each pod contained not just a living being, but an entire civilization's worth of knowledge and culture, preserved in quantum storage devices that interface directly with their occupants' consciousness. The curator's crystalline form appeared on the bridge, its presence somehow both there and not there simultaneously. "Your ships are performing beyond their theoretical limitations," it observed. "This should not be possible. Humanity has a habit of exceeding theoretical limitations," Reynolds replied without taking his eyes off the tactical display. "It's kind of our thing." A sudden alarm blared from Maya's station. "Commander, I'm detecting quantum cascade failures throughout the void. The temporal barrier is beginning to collapse. The view screen showed the chaos unfolding around them. The carefully maintained quantum storms that had protected the station for 50,000 years were breaking down, creating waves of temporal distortion that threatened to tear reality apart. All ships, emergency jump preparations, Reynolds ordered. Plot a course through the quantum wake of our entry point. Commander, the curator's form flickered urgently. There is something you must know before you leave. The knowledge contained within these pods. It includes warnings about threats to this galaxy that even the precursors feared. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of threats? Beings that exist between universes, entities that feed on entire civilizations' worth of consciousness, temporal predators that hunt through the quantum foam of spacetime itself. The precursors didn't just leave. They ascended to fight these threats on their own terms. And now you're passing this fight on to us? Reynolds asked, his voice tight with tension as another wave of temporal distortion rocked the ship. We are passing on the choice, the curator corrected. Each species you rescue will awaken with knowledge that could help prepare this galaxy for what is coming. But how that knowledge is used, how your civilization chooses to face these challenges, that will be up to you. David's console lit up with urgent signals. Commander, the Arxer fleet has returned. They're holding position just outside the void's perimeter. The curator's form shifted to something approaching concern. The collapse of the temporal barrier will create a quantum shockwave capable of destroying any ships in its path. Your exit window is closing rapidly. Reynolds opened a channel to the Arxer fleet. This is Commander Reynolds. Be advised, you need to clear this sector immediately. The void is becoming unstable. We cannot allow potentially dangerous temporal technology to leave this region, the Arxer commander responded. Stand down and prepare to be boarded once you exit the void. Sarah watched Reynolds' expression harden. Maya, how long until total collapse? 10 minutes at most. The quantum cascade is accelerating. Reynolds smiled grimly. David, open a channel to the Arxer fleet, full broadcast. He waited for confirmation before speaking. Arxer Command, this is your final warning. We are attempting to rescue survivors of multiple extinct civilizations. These people have waited 50,000 years for help, and we will not abandon them now. You can either clear our path or learn firsthand why humanity's rescue ships are considered the most dangerous vessels in known space. You would risk war with the Galactic Council, the Arxer commander demanded. We would risk anything to save lives, Reynolds replied simply. That's what humans do. Your choice. The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. Sarah noticed her hands were trembling slightly and clasped them behind her back, standing straighter. Quantum cascade approaching critical threshold, Maya reported. Time to collapse. 7 minutes. The curator's form began to fade. The station's final protocols are engaging. We cannot maintain this form much longer. It turned to Sarah. Dr. Chen, the precursors believed that humanity's greatest strength was not your technology or your determination, but your capacity for compassion, even in the face of extinction. Do not lose that quality in the challenges ahead. 5 minutes to collapse, Maya announced. Commander, we need to move now. Reynolds opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, Battle Formation Delta. Prepare for emergency quantum jump on my mark. We're getting these people home, whatever it takes. The rescue fleet moved into position, their quantum shields glowing with the energy of multiple temporal stasis fields. Before them lay the rapidly collapsing void and an Arxer fleet that could start an interstellar war. Behind them, 50,000 years of history and knowledge hung in the balance. 3 minutes, Maya counted down. Quantum cascade approaching terminal phase. Reynolds took a deep breath. Let's show the galaxy why you never want to stand between humanity and someone who needs our help. The void was collapsing around them, reality itself tearing apart as 50,000 years of carefully maintained temporal stability broke down. On the Defiance Bridge, Commander Reynolds watched the tactical display as the rescue fleet moved into position, their quantum shields blazing against the chaos. 2 minutes to total collapse, Maya reported, her voice steady despite the strain. The quantum cascade is accelerating beyond predicted models. The Arxur fleet still blocked their escape route, their crystalline ships forming an impenetrable barrier between the rescue fleet and normal space. Sarah studied their formation, noticing something odd about their positioning. "Commander," she said suddenly, "look at their shield configuration. They're not in attack formation. They're trying to create a quantum buffer zone." Reynolds leaned forward, eyes narrowing as he analyzed the data. "They're not trying to stop us. They're trying to contain the quantum shockwave when the void collapses." He opened a channel to the Arxur commander. "This is Commander Reynolds. We see what you're attempting. Let us help." There was a moment of tense silence before the Arxur commander responded. "Your ship's modified quantum shields might strengthen the buffer, but you risk your vessels and your rescued charges. Why would you take such a risk?" "Because that's what humanity does," Reynolds replied. "We don't just save some people while sacrificing others. We find a way to save everyone." 90 seconds to collapse, Maya announced. Reynolds opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, new plan. We're going to synchronize our quantum shields with the Arxur buffer zone. Maya, transmit shield harmonics to all vessels. David, coordinate with the Arxur fleet for precise positioning." The rescue fleet moved with practiced precision, their ships taking up positions that would reinforce the Arxur's containment effort while maintaining the temporal stasis fields protecting their precious cargo. "The curator was right about you," the Arxur commander said, a note of wonder in their translated voice. "You truly are a remarkable species." 60 seconds. Sarah's console lit up with new readings. "Commander, the quantum cascade is creating tears in spacetime. If we don't contain this perfectly, it could create a chain reaction that would devastate this entire sector." "Then we'll contain it perfectly," Reynolds said with quiet confidence. "Maya, initiate quantum shield synchronization. All ships, channel emergency power to your temporal buffers. We're not losing anyone today." The combined fleets created a sphere of quantum energy around the collapsing void, their shields resonating in perfect harmony. Inside the containment zone, reality itself began to break down as the temporal protections failed completely. 30 seconds. The strain on the ship's systems was enormous. Warning alarms blared as quantum drives pushed far beyond their design limitations. Through it all, the crews worked with focused determination, making constant adjustments to maintain the delicate balance of energies. "The stasis pods are stable," Sarah reported, monitoring the life signs of their rescued passengers. "Whatever happens, they're going to survive this." 15 seconds. Reynolds opened a final channel to all ships, human and Arxur alike. "Hold steady. We've got one chance to do this right. Everything we've got. Right here, right now." The void collapsed with a silent explosion of quantum energy that lit up sensors across half the galaxy. The combined fleet's containment field held, channeling the destructive force of 50,000 years of temporal energy safely into the quantum foam of space itself. When the sensors finally cleared, the void was gone. In its place was a perfectly ordinary section of space, remarkable only for how unremarkable it now appeared. The rescue fleet's quantum shields powered down, their precious cargo of temporal stasis pods still safely preserved. "Damage report," Reynolds called out. "Minor systems damage across all ships," Maya reported, sounding almost surprised. "But we're intact. The temporal stasis fields are holding steady." The Arxur commander's image appeared on their main screen. "Commander Reynolds, I must admit we had misconceptions about humanity. When we detected your rescue attempt, we assumed it was driven by greed for precursor technology. Instead, you risk everything simply to save lives, even going so far as to risk your mission to help us contain the collapse." "That's who we are," Reynolds replied simply. "That's who we've always been." Sarah stepped forward. "Commander, if I may." At Reynolds' nod, she addressed the Arxer. "The Curator told us about threats coming to this galaxy, threats that the precursors themselves feared. We're going to need to work together to face them. Today proved that we can." The Arxer commander was silent for a long moment before responding. "The Council will need to be informed of everything that has happened here. But perhaps it is time for humanity to take a larger role in galactic affairs. You have demonstrated capabilities and principles that we did not expect. We should get these people to Earth," Reynolds said. "They've waited long enough to wake up." As the combined fleet set course for Earth, Sarah found herself back in the observation lounge, watching the stars streak by. David joined her, just as he had before their mission began. "The Arxer are already calling this the Void Miracle," he said, offering her a fresh cup of coffee. "Apparently, saving everyone involved in an impossible situation while preventing a temporal catastrophe is unusual enough to warrant a special designation." Sarah smiled. "We're going to change everything, aren't we? Once these people wake up, once we start preparing for whatever's coming." "Yeah," David agreed. "But that's what humans do best. We change things. We make the impossible possible. We save people. And we don't do it alone anymore," Sarah added, watching the Arxer ships flying in formation with the rescue fleet. The stasis pods in the Defiance cargo hold contain not just the last survivors of extinct civilizations, but the knowledge and warnings of the most advanced species the galaxy had ever known. The precursors had waited 50,000 years for someone brave enough, determined enough, and compassionate enough to attempt their rescue. They had waited for humanity, and humanity had answered. As they approached Earth, Sarah thought about the Curator's final words about humanity's greatest strength being compassion. In the end, that's what had saved them all. The simple, uniquely human determination to help others, no matter the cost, no matter the risk, no matter how impossible it seemed. The galaxy was about to change, but with humanity's spirit leading the way, it would change for the better.